Imagine standing in front of a sparkling new home, a shimmering pool in the backyard, knowing it's yours. Now picture your parents' house right next door, where they forced you to sleep on the cold, hard floor. That's my story. I'm Emily, 29, and I never thought my own family would treat me like an afterthought. My parents, Linda and Robert, decided my little sister Chloe deserved my bedroom because she needed space for her senior year. They told me, just sleep on the living room floor, Emily, until you figure life out. Figure life out? I'd graduated from Stanford with honors in architecture, but a recession crushed my dreams of a dream job. I moved back to Portland, Oregon, hoping for support. Instead, I got a musty sleeping bag and their dismissive glances. They stepped over me every day, while Chloe's laughter echoed from my old room. It hurt, deeply. But I didn't argue. I planned. What would you do if your family turned their back on you? Would you shrink, or would you rise? I chose to rise. Quietly, I bought the house next door. And then, I built a stunning pool, right in their line of sight. A symbol of everything they underestimated. They thought I was broken, but they had no idea what I was capable of. Stick around to see how I turned their betrayal into my triumph, step by silent step. This is my story, and it's just getting started. Let me take you back to where this all began. I'm Emily, a 29-year-old dreamer who thought home was a safe haven. I'd just graduated from Stanford with honors in architecture, my head full of plans to design eco-friendly buildings that could change the world. But life had other ideas. A brutal economic recession hit, and the architecture world froze. Firms stopped hiring, projects stalled, and my dream job slipped through my fingers. With nowhere else to turn, I packed my bags and moved back to my parents' house in Portland, Oregon. It was supposed to be temporary, a pit stop until I got back on my feet. At first, it felt like home again. My parents, Linda and Robert, welcomed me with open arms. Mom would pack me lunches for job interviews, and Dad offered to proofread my cover letters. Our cozy family home, tucked in a quiet Portland neighborhood, still had my childhood bedroom, filled with academic awards and architectural models I'd built with care. It was my sanctuary, a reminder of who I was and who I wanted to be. Then there was my little sister, Chloe, 17 and bursting with energy. She was in her final year of high school, always bouncing into my room to spill the latest school gossip or ask for college advice. Despite our 8-year age gap, we'd always been close. I loved her spontaneity, the way she'd sprawl across my bed, tossing her hair as she dreamed out loud about her future. You think I can get into Oregon State?" she'd ask, her eyes bright with hope. I'd reassure her, proud of her extracurriculars and grades, genuinely believing she had a bright path ahead. Those early months, I settled into a routine. Mornings were for job applications, afternoons for helping around the house. I cooked dinner 3 nights a week, scrubbed bathrooms every Sunday, and even helped Dad fix the creaky back deck. I chipped in $300 a month for utilities and groceries, dipping into my dwindling savings. I wasn't just a guest, I was contributing, determined to pull my weight. But slowly, cracks started to show. It began with small things, like Mom serving Chloe an extra helping at dinner while praising her latest school project. "Chloe's in this honors program now," Mom beamed one night, her voice glowing with pride. "It'll look amazing on her college applications." Dad nodded, adding, "Emily was in honors too, back in the day." Mom waved it off. "Oh, things were easier then. Chloe's under so much more pressure." I caught Chloe's quick, apologetic glance, but I just smiled and changed the subject. I didn't want to stir the pot. Besides, I had bigger things to focus on, like the promising interview I'd just landed with Apex Designs, a firm known for sustainable commercial projects. It was the kind of job I'd dreamed of, blending my passion for green design with real-world impact. "I've got an interview next Wednesday," I announced at dinner, hoping for a shred of their excitement. Mom barely looked up. "That's nice, dear," she said, turning right back to Chloe. "Now, tell us about your honors project." I swallowed the sting and threw myself into preparing for that interview. I polished my portfolio, practiced my answers, and drove to Apex Designs with a flicker of hope. The interview went better than I could have imagined. The firm's director was impressed with my designs, my understanding of sustainable materials. "We need someone like you," she said, and for the first time in months, I felt seen. Driving home, I let myself believe things were turning around. That night, I went all out, cooking Mom's favorite dish, homemade ravioli with a creamy mushroom sauce. We laughed over dinner, Dad poured wine, and even Chloe seemed genuinely curious about my interview. For a few hours, I felt like part of the family again, not just the unemployed daughter crashing in her old room. Dad raised his glass, grinning. "To Emily, soon to be Apex Design's newest architect." I smiled, soaking in the moment, unaware that everything was about to unravel. Looking back, I should have savored that night more, the warmth, the laughter, the fleeting sense of belonging. Because just days later, my world would turn upside down. The people I trusted most would make a choice that cut deeper than I could have imagined. I'd spent years building my dreams, earning my place, but to them, I was about to become invisible. Have you ever felt like the people closest to you stopped seeing you? Like your worth was suddenly up for debate? That's where my story takes a turn. What happened next wasn't just a betrayal, it was the spark that lit a fire inside me, one that would change everything. Betrayal doesn't always come with a warning. Sometimes, it's a quiet shift, a moment when the people you trust most reveal they don't see you at all. For me, that moment came when I walked into my parents' house and saw my life reduced to boxes in a hallway. I'm Emily, and this is the part of my story where the family I loved turned their backs on me, forcing me to sleep on their living room floor. They thought I'd accept it, that I'd shrink into their dismissal. They were wrong. This wasn't just about losing a room, it was about losing my place in their hearts. But instead of breaking, I started building. Have you ever been made to feel invisible by the people who should love you most? This is how I survived it. It was a Thursday afternoon in Portland, Oregon. I'd just come back from a follow-up meeting with a contractor who'd offered to let me shadow him until I landed a full-time job. My interview with Apex Designs had gone so well, I could still feel the spark of hope it had ignited. I pulled into the driveway, the house unusually quiet. No one answered when I called out, so I headed upstairs, ready to change and start dinner. But at the top of the stairs, I froze. My belongings, books, clothes, architecture supplies, pieces of my life, were piled haphazardly in the narrow hallway, like someone had emptied my existence into a messy heap. My first thought was a break-in, but nothing was stolen, just displaced. Heart pounding, I pushed open my bedroom door, and the sight hit me like a punch. My twin bed was gone, replaced by Chloe's queen-sized one, draped in her favorite pink comforter. My architectural prints and college pennants had vanished, swapped for her concert posters and string lights. My drafting table, where I'd spent countless hours sketching, was now her vanity, cluttered with makeup and hair ties. It was as if I'd been erased. "Oh, you're home," Mom said, appearing behind me with a laundry basket, her tone as casual as if she'd rearranged furniture. "We moved your things out. Chloe needed more space for her senior year." I turned slowly, my voice barely a whisper. "You moved me out? Without asking?" She shrugged, like it was no big deal. "You were out all day. Besides, you're barely here with your job hunting." "Where am I supposed to sleep?" I asked, the words sounding foreign, like they belonged to someone else. Dad's voice came from the master bedroom doorway. "The living room floor's fine for now. We've got that old sleeping bag from camping." The words landed like blows, their casual cruelty stealing my breath. The floor? As if my unemployment was a choice, as if I hadn't been scouring job boards daily, fighting a recession that had crushed my field. Chloe appeared in what used to be my doorway, twirling her hair. "I needed the room for college prep stuff," she said with a shrug. "It's not like you have a real job." Her words cut deeper than my parents', a betrayal from the sister I'd always protected. I stood there, surrounded by my scattered life, trying to find words to make them see what they'd done. But nothing came. Instead, a strange calm settled over me, like I was floating above the scene, watching it happen to someone else. "I see," was all I said, my voice hollow. Mom waved a hand, dismissive. "Don't make this a big deal, Emily. Brooke's at a crucial point. Her needs come first." Dad nodded, as if it was settled. "Family supports each other. You can handle the floor for a while." Their logic was a twisted kind of torture. Support meant sacrifice, but only for me, never for Chloe. I nodded, not because I agreed, but because I knew arguing wouldn't change them. It would only make me the difficult one, the ungrateful daughter. So I stayed silent, and in that silence, a plan began to form. That night, I unrolled the sleeping bag on the living room floor, positioning it between the coffee table and TV. Every step through the room forced me to curl up tighter to avoid being stepped on. The hardwood pressed into my hips, the thin bag offering no comfort. Sleep didn't come. The refrigerator hummed, the heater clicked, and upstairs, Chloe's music drifted down, her laughter on a phone call taunting me. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the weight of their decision sinking in. This wasn't just about a room. It was about being demoted, deemed less valuable because I was struggling in a world that had turned against my dreams. They saw me as a failure, not a daughter fighting to rebuild. Morning brought no relief. I woke before dawn, my neck stiff, my back screaming. I packed away the sleeping bag quickly, hiding any trace of my makeshift bed. The unspoken rule was clear: my presence was to be invisible by day, as if acknowledging it would embarrass them. From the kitchen, I watched Mom and Dad enter Chloe's room, my room, with paint swatches, planning to redecorate it lavender. "It'll help her focus," Mom said when she came down, as if I'd care about the color of my stolen space. I stirred my coffee, nodding, my face a mask. The betrayal wasn't just physical. It was the erasure of my place in their lives, the assumption that I deserved less because I hadn't yet figured it out. The days that followed were a slow descent into humiliation. Each night on the floor grew harder, a persistent ache spreading through my body. Mom complained when my toiletries took up bathroom space. "Keep them in a caddy," she said. "Chloe needs the counter for her skincare." I complied, storing my things in a plastic bin I carried to the coat closet. My clothes stayed in hallway boxes, wrinkling as I rummaged through them. When I asked about using the hall closet, Dad shook his head. "That's for guests," he said, though we rarely had any. Family dinners became a performance. I sat quietly as they fawned over Chloe's latest school project, my job search ignored. Chloe might be class president, Mom said, her pride never extended to me. I'd become a ghost, present but unseen. The worst came one afternoon when I returned from a job fair, exhausted but hopeful. Chloe's friends were sprawled across the living room, my sleeping space, watching a movie. "This is my sister," Chloe said with a laugh, waving at me. "She's, like, between things." Her friend Mia didn't hide her smirk. "You sleep right here?" she asked, patting the floor. "That's so sad." The others giggled, their pity worse than scorn. "It's temporary," I said, forcing dignity I didn't feel. "Yeah, until she figures out her life," Chloe added, echoing our parents' cruelty. I caught Mia's glance, her amusement slicing through me. I retreated to the backyard, my face burning, their laughter following me. Despite it all, they expected me to keep contributing. I cooked dinners, cleaned bathrooms, paid my $300 for utilities, my savings shrinking. One morning, Mom stopped me as I prepped for a video interview. "Did you forget the guest bathroom?" she asked. "Chloe's study group needs it." I'd cleaned it the day before, but I scrubbed it again, missing the interview start for her friend's comfort. The inequality was stark. I was a servant in my own home, my struggles irrelevant next to Chloe's whims. That's when I knew I couldn't stay. Not like this. But I wouldn't leave with a fight or a scene. I'd leave with a plan, one so undeniable they'd never forget it. As I lay on the floor that night, the seeds of it took root. I'd show them who I was, not with words, but with actions. What do you do when your family makes you feel worthless? You build something they can't ignore. That's where my story turns, and trust me, it's about to get good. Humiliation has a way of sharpening your focus. After my parents forced me to sleep on their living room floor, something shifted inside me. The sting of their words, "Figure life out, Emily," and the casual cruelty of stepping over me every day didn't break me. It lit a fire. I wasn't going to beg for their respect or argue for my place in their home. Instead, I decided to build my own. I'm Emily, and this is the part of my story where I stopped being invisible and started rewriting my future, one quiet, deliberate step at a time. My family thought I was down for the count, but they had no idea what I was capable of. I wasn't just surviving their betrayal, I was planning a comeback they'd never see coming. It started with a lifeline. A Tuesday afternoon, as I chopped vegetables for dinner, my phone buzzed with an email from Apex Designs, the architecture firm I'd interviewed with. My heart raced as I opened it. "We're thrilled to offer you the junior architect position," it read. "Starting salary, $65,000 annually, with benefits after 90 days. I stood there, knife in hand, a wave of elation crashing over me. This was it, my ticket out. Not just a job, but a chance to reclaim my dreams of designing sustainable buildings. The kind of work I'd spent years studying for at Stanford. But I didn't run to tell my parents. Their dismissal had taught me to guard my victories. Just spam, I lied when Mom noticed my pause, slipping my phone back into my pocket. That secrecy became my shield, my strength. I wasn't ready to share this with a family who'd made me feel worthless. The next morning, I contacted a realtor named Sarah. "I need to see properties in my parents' neighborhood," I told her, my voice steady. "Specifically, anything on their street." She raised an eyebrow but pulled up listings. Fate, or maybe sheer luck, was on my side. The house next door, a modest 3-bedroom that had sat empty for months, was still on the market. Its price had dropped twice due to outdated fixtures and a sagging roof. "It's a fixer-upper," Sarah warned as we toured the dusty rooms. The kitchen was stuck in the 80s, with peeling linoleum and avocado green cabinets. The bathroom screamed for a gut job, and the backyard was a jungle of overgrown weeds. But I saw potential. "The bones are solid," I said, running my hand along a wall. "And the backyard's huge, over a 1/4 acre." Sarah nodded. "More than most lots around here." I stopped at the back window, staring at the sprawling yard that bordered my parents' property. A vision took shape in my mind, not just a house, but a statement. A slow smile spread across my face. "I'm interested," I told her. "Very interested." Securing the house was my next hurdle. I met with a loan officer at Cascade Bank, armed with my Apex Designs contract, an excellent credit score, and a secret weapon, a modest inheritance from my grandmother, tucked away in an account my parents knew nothing about. They'd always assumed I was scraping by, but I'd been careful, strategic. The house's low price, thanks to its condition, made it an ideal investment. "You're making a smart move," the loan officer, Mark, told me as we reviewed the paperwork. "Property in this Portland neighborhood has held strong, even through the recession." I signed the documents with a steady hand, my heart pounding with possibility. "I'm thinking long-term," I replied, already imagining the transformation. The closing was set for a Tuesday afternoon, just weeks away. I walked out of that bank a homeowner, keys in hand, and not a soul in my family had a clue. My first day at Apex Designs felt like stepping into a new skin. The office buzzed with creativity, walls lined with blueprints and models of sustainable projects. My colleagues welcomed me warmly, impressed by the portfolio I'd poured my heart into. My boss, Karen, assigned me to a sustainable office complex project, a perfect fit for my passion for green design. "Your attention to detail is exactly what we need," she said after reviewing my first sketches. Her praise was a balm to the wounds my family had left. At work, my ideas mattered. My voice carried weight. It was the opposite of home, where I was just a body to step around, my contributions dismissed as insignificant. Karen's confidence in me fueled my drive. I stayed late, sketching designs that blended aesthetics with eco-friendly materials, losing myself in the work I'd always dreamed of. Each day, I felt more like the woman I was meant to be, not the failure my parents saw. But home was still a battlefield. I kept up the pretense, sleeping on that musty sleeping bag, cooking dinners, cleaning bathrooms, and paying my $300 toward utilities. My parents didn't notice the paint smudges on my jeans from late-night visits to my new house or the extra hours I spent out. They were too busy fawning over Chloe's new lavender bedroom, the one they'd taken from me. "It's so soothing," Mom gushed one evening, clearing the dinner table. "Perfect for Chloe studying." I nodded, my face a mask of neutrality, remembering how she'd vetoed my request to paint that same room years ago. The double standard burned, but I channeled it into my plan. Every slight, every dismissal, added fuel to my resolve. I wasn't just building a house, I was building a life they couldn't ignore. The renovations began the day after closing. I hired James, a contractor Sarah recommended, to tackle the essentials: bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, and the backyard. "We'll prioritize functionality," I told him during our walkthrough, stepping over cracked tiles in the entryway. "I need the basics livable in 6 weeks." James jotted notes, his brow furrowed. "What about the backyard? Any plans?" I smiled, a glint in my eye. "Very specific ones. But let's start inside." James and his team moved fast, tearing out dated wallpaper, ripping up worn carpet, and installing hardwood floors that gleamed under the new recessed lighting. The kitchen took shape with sleek quartz countertops, stainless steel appliances, and a deep farmhouse sink I'd always wanted. The main bathroom became a haven, with a rainfall shower and heated tile floors, a small luxury that felt like a rebellion against the cold floor I still slept on. Each evening, I'd slip next door after work, checking progress, choosing fixtures, and watching my vision come to life. The transformation was breathtaking, even in its early stages. The backyard, though, was where my plan would truly shine. I met with 3 pool contractors before choosing Pacific Pools, a company known for innovative designs. "I want something modern," I told their lead designer, Heather, as we stood in the overgrown yard. "Clean lines, a waterfall feature on the far end, 16 by 32 feet, positioned right here." I pointed to the spot directly visible from my parents' kitchen and living room windows. Heather sketched, her pencil flying. "That's a bold placement," she said, glancing at the neighboring house. "It'll be noisy during excavation." I nodded, unfazed. "That's not a concern." I signed the contract, the pool set to begin the same week I planned my exit. The timing was perfect, a crescendo to my silent symphony. This wasn't just a pool. It was a declaration, a symbol of everything I'd been denied and everything I'd earned. Keeping my secret took discipline. I opened a separate bank account for my Apex salary, ensuring my parents had no hint of my financial shift. When Dad asked about my day, I'd mumble about following leads or networking, never mentioning the job at one of Portland's top firms. I used lunch breaks for meetings with Sarah or James, early mornings for property inspections. My parents' focus stayed on Chloe, her school projects, her new furniture, her every whim. They didn't notice my absences or the quiet determination in my eyes. That blindness was their mistake, and it gave me the space to work. I was no longer the daughter they pitted. I was a woman with a plan, a homeowner with a vision, an architect with a future. As the renovations progressed, I felt a strange peace settle over me. The house was becoming mine, each nail and brushstroke a piece of my redemption. At Apex, I thrived, my designs earning nods from colleagues who saw my potential. Karen pulled me aside one day, her eyes bright. "Your modifications to the office complex are brilliant, Emily. You're going places." Her words were a lifeline, a reminder that my worth wasn't tied to my parents' approval. But the real victory was next door, where walls rose and dreams took shape. The pool's excavation loomed, its noise and presence ready to shatter my family's illusions. I was done being invisible. Soon, they'd see exactly what I'd built, right in their backyard. Every night, as I lay on that hard floor, I visualized the moment they'd realize their mistake. The pool, the house, my new life, they weren't just for me. They were proof that dignity isn't negotiable, that pain can fuel progress. I was ready to step out of their shadow and into my own light. But how would they react when the truth hit? When the daughter they dismissed stood taller than they ever imagined? That's where my story turns again, and trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. There's a moment when you realize you're done accepting less than you deserve. For me, that moment came after weeks of sleeping on my parents' cold living room floor, their footsteps echoing around me, their words cutting deeper than the hardwood ever could. I'd been invisible to them, my dreams, my efforts, my worth all dismissed to make room for my sister, Chloe. But I hadn't just endured it. I'd planned. I'd worked. And now, I was ready to step into the life I'd built in secret. I'm Emily, and this is the part of my story where the daughter they underestimated turned their world upside down. They thought they knew me, thought they could define my limits. They were wrong. What happens when the person you stepped over stands taller than you ever imagined? Let's find out. It started before dawn on a crisp Portland morning. I woke on that musty sleeping bag, my back aching, my resolve stronger than ever. This was my last night on their floor. I moved with quiet precision, gathering my life into 2 suitcases and a backpack. My toiletries, stuffed in a plastic caddy, came out of the downstairs closet. My clothes, wrinkled from weeks in hallway boxes, were carefully packed. The sleeping bag, I rolled up and left in the closet, a final gesture they didn't deserve. The house was still, my family asleep in their comfortable beds, oblivious to the shift about to happen. I wrote a note, simple and sharp, and left it on the kitchen counter, found my own place. Won't be needing the floor anymore. No explanations, no pleas, just the truth, delivered with the same casual indifference they'd shown me. I loaded my car in the pre-dawn light, glancing at the house next door, my house. From the outside, it looked unchanged, hiding the transformation within. That reveal would come soon, and I'd make sure it hit hard. I drove to Apex Designs early, using the office shower to prep for the day, my suitcases tucked in my trunk until evening. Work was my refuge, a place where my ideas mattered, where I wasn't just a body to step around. I threw myself into the Sustainable Office Complex project, finalizing designs with a focus that surprised even my colleagues. "You're on fire today," Emily once said, not knowing the fire came from a plan 6 weeks in the making. My phone buzzed all morning, texts from Mom, then Dad, then, surprisingly, Chloe. "Where are your things? Call us." "What do you mean you found a place? Did you really move out?" I silenced the notifications, letting their confusion simmer. They'd find out soon enough, and I wanted it to be on my terms. By 5 o'clock, I'd finished a week's worth of work, my determination cutting through every task. As I drove to my new home, I saw my parents' cars in their driveway, perfect timing. I pulled into my own driveway, the one next door, and unloaded my bags with deliberate calm. I could feel their eyes on me through their kitchen window, but I didn't look. Let them wonder. The front door of my house opened with a satisfying click, and I stepped inside. The transformation was complete, modern furniture arranged to my taste, soft lighting warming the hardwood floors, the air carrying the faint scent of fresh paint. This was my sanctuary, built with my own hands, my own vision. I set down my bags, letting the reality sink in. I'd done this. Me. The daughter they'd dismissed had created something they couldn't ignore. The knock came sooner than I expected. Through the peephole, I saw Mom and Dad on my porch, their faces a mix of confusion and something else, worry, maybe, or guilt. I opened the door but stayed in the threshold, my body a barrier. "Samantha, what is this?" Mom asked, peering past me into the furnished living room, her eyes wide. "You bought a house?" Dad's voice was incredulous. "Next door to us? When? How?" I kept my tone even, every word measured. "I've been working at Apex Designs for 6 weeks. The job you never asked about." The career you were too busy to notice while you focused on Chloe's room color. Their expressions shifted, confusion hardening into defensiveness. You never told us you got a job. Mom protested, her voice rising. You never asked, I shot back, calm but unyielding. Not once in 6 weeks did you show any interest in my life. You were too busy stepping over me on your floor. Dad ran a hand through his hair, flustered. You could have said something, Emily, instead of just vanishing like this. The irony almost made me laugh. You mean like you said something before moving my things to the hallway? Before telling me the floor was good enough until I figured life out? The question hung between us, heavy and unanswered. Behind them, I saw Chloe approaching from their house, her steps hesitant, her face unreadable. Mom tried to push forward, as if entitled to my space. Can we come in? She asked, already moving. I didn't budge. No. This is my home, and I decide who enters. That privilege has to be earned. Their shock was palpable. They'd never imagined I'd deny them anything, let alone access to my life. Their assumption of control, of family as a free pass, crumbled in that moment. Dad tried to recover, his voice softer. Samantha, we're family. As if the word erased everything. Family doesn't make someone sleep on the floor when there are other options, I said, my gaze steady. Family doesn't dismiss someone's struggles or measure their worth by a job they couldn't find in a recession. Before they could respond, a low rumble interrupted us, the sound of heavy machinery. The pool excavation had begun, right on schedule. Mom's head snapped toward the noise, her eyes narrowing. What's happening back there? She demanded. Renovations, I said, deliberately vague, a hint of a smile tugging at my lips. Dad craned his neck, trying to see past the house. Already? You just moved in. I corrected him, my voice firm. I've owned this house for 6 weeks. Today's just the first day you've noticed. The truth landed like a blow. 6 weeks of planning, of buying, of building, had happened right under their noses, and they'd been too self-absorbed to see it. The metaphor was almost poetic, their blindness to my worth mirrored their blindness to my actions. Mom regrouped, her tone shifting to forced civility. We're having a family dinner tonight. You should come. We can talk this out properly. I shook my head, polite but resolute. Thank you, but I have unpacking to do. And contractors to oversee. Dad's brow furrowed. What exactly are you building back there? I met his eyes, letting the moment stretch. You'll see soon enough. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a lot to do. I closed the door, gently but decisively, leaving them on the porch, their voices rising in heated whispers as they retreated. Chloe lingered, her expression torn. She stepped onto the porch after they left, twirling a strand of hair nervously. I'm sorry, she said, her voice small. I didn't realize how bad this was for you. I should have said something when they took your room. Her apology caught me off guard, raw and unpolished. Why now? I asked, studying her. I don't know, she admitted. It just feels wrong. You were always there for me, and I let them treat you like nothing. I softened, but only slightly. It hurt, Chloe. Not just the room, but you acting like I didn't matter. She nodded, eyes downcast. I know. Can we talk sometime? Like before? I considered it, seeing a glimpse of the sister I'd once been close to. Maybe, I said. But things are different now. I'm different. She gave a small smile, accepting it. I get it. I'm really sorry. As she walked back to their house, the rumble of the excavator grew louder, a steady drumbeat of change. The pool was taking shape, its outline a promise of the statement to come. My parents thought they could smooth this over with a dinner, thought they could keep me in their narrative of the struggling daughter. But I'd rewritten the script. I wasn't their failure. I was their neighbor, their equal, a woman who'd turned their betrayal into triumph. The neighborhood was already whispering, Caroline across the street had asked about the construction, her eyes wide with curiosity. Soon, everyone would know. And my parents? They'd have to face the daughter they'd underestimated, not with words, but with the undeniable truth of what I'd built. Standing in my new living room, I felt a weight lift. This house, this moment, was mine. But the story wasn't over. The pool's completion would send a message louder than any argument, and my parents' reactions were just beginning. How do you move forward when the people who hurt you are still next door? When the boundaries you've set are tested every day? That's where my journey takes its next turn, and it's a chapter you won't want to miss. The air felt different now, charged with the weight of what I'd done. My new home in Portland, Oregon, stood as a beacon of my resilience, its modern lines and glowing lights a far cry from the cold floor I'd slept on. The pool, with its sleek waterfall and shimmering water, was complete, a stunning focal point that turned every neighbor's head. From my parents' kitchen window, it was impossible to miss, a daily reminder of the daughter they'd underestimated. I'm Emily, and this is where my story shifts from defiance to transformation. I wasn't just proving a point anymore. I was building a life, setting boundaries, and discovering who I could be when I stopped seeking their approval. But what happens when the people who hurt you start to see their mistakes? Let's dive in. The neighborhood couldn't stop talking. My house, once a dated fixer-upper, was now the talk of the block. Caroline from across the street brought a housewarming plant, her card reading, "To your independence, Emily." Lawrence, a retired teacher, grinned as he helped me set up my mailbox. "Buying next to your parents?" "That's bold," he said, not grasping the full weight of my choice. I smiled. Sometimes the closest boundaries are the strongest. Their warmth contrasted sharply with my family's coldness, making my victory sweeter. My parents, Linda and Robert, couldn't escape the whispers. The pool, the house, my sudden status as a homeowner, it was all too visible. They'd dismissed me as a failure, but now their mistake stared them down every time they glanced out their window. I decided to celebrate with a housewarming party, a marker of my journey from humiliation to triumph. The guest list was intentional: colleagues from Apex Designs, neighbors who'd cheered me on, new friends from networking, and, after careful thought, Chloe. My parents weren't invited. That boundary, though painful, was essential for my peace. The party was magical, guests swam in the pool, laughter echoed across the patio, and my boss, Karen, raised a toast. To Emily, our new project lead on the sustainable housing development, she announced, her pride lifting me higher than any family dinner ever had. The applause felt like a homecoming, a reminder that I was valued, not invisible. My colleagues admired the house, marveling at the quartz countertops and energy-efficient designs I'd chosen. This wasn't just a party, it was a declaration of who I was. My parents watched from their kitchen, their silhouettes framed by the glow of my pool's lights. They'd tried to bridge the gap, but their efforts fell short. Mom dropped off cookies one day, her voice strained. "For the new neighbor," she said, as if I wasn't her daughter. I thanked her but kept the door closed. Dad offered to help with renovations, suggesting fixtures like my architectural degree meant nothing. "I've got professionals," I said, shutting it down. Their gestures avoided the truth. They couldn't admit how they'd dehumanized me, how they'd made me feel worthless. Without that acknowledgement, their outreach was empty, like offering a bandage for a broken bone. Dad cracked first. One evening, as I planted roses along my walkway, he approached, hands in his pockets. "Need help?" he asked. I nodded, letting him join me. We worked quietly, the hum of my pool's filter in the background. Finally, he spoke. "This house is incredible, Emily. You've done something special." I waited, sensing more. "I was wrong," he said, his voice heavy. "Giving your room to Chloe, letting you sleep on the floor, it was wrong. I got caught up in her needs and forgot yours. I'm sorry." His apology was raw but incomplete. He saw the hurt, not its depth. "It wasn't just wrong, Dad," I said, meeting his eyes. "It was dehumanizing. You tied my worth to a job I couldn't find in a recession. He flinched, my words hitting home. I'm sorry, he repeated, softer. I nodded, not fully accepting, but it was a start. Trust would take time. Mom was harder. At the grocery store, she cornered me by the apples. You're blowing this out of proportion, Emily, she said, her tone sharp. Families make sacrifices. I didn't waver. It wasn't about sacrifice, Mom. It was you deciding I deserved less dignity than Chloe. She sighed, deflecting. That pool's got everyone talking. You've made your point. I held her gaze. I didn't build it for them. Or you. I walked away, her denial no longer my burden. I didn't need her validation. My worth was mine to define, and I was done letting her rewrite my story. Chloe was different. One afternoon, she showed up at my door, her usual bravado gone. I was awful, she said, straight to the point. I let Mom and Dad treat you like nothing, and I made it worse with my friends. I'm sorry, Em. Her honesty disarmed me. Why now? I asked. She shrugged, vulnerable. College is coming, and I keep thinking, what if I struggle like you did? I'd want kindness, not dismissal. Her insight surprised me. That's perceptive, I said. I miss you, she admitted. And I hate that I took your room. I softened. You were 17. The adults should have known better. She hesitated. Can we be sisters again? Not the spoiled brat version of me. I smiled. Coffee next week. Small steps. Her grin was a spark of hope. At the party, Chloe arrived early, awestruck by my home. This is unreal, Em, she said, tracing the countertops. Later, by the pool, she shared big news. I got into Oregon State. Full scholarship. I hugged her, proud. That's huge, Chloe. She paused. I'm thinking about architecture. Is that weird? My heart swelled. Not weird. You'd be great. She admitted Mom pushed business, calling architecture risky. I set down my glass, serious. Chloe, only you decide what you're capable of. Not Mom, not Dad, not me. She nodded, a new strength in her eyes, and I saw her starting to carve her own path. My success was undeniable. The local business journal featured my work at Apex, neighbors coveted my pool, and a charity asked to tour my home. My parents couldn't dismiss me anymore, but their reckoning was their own. I'd built a life that spoke louder than their apologies. Standing by the pool that night, I felt the weight of my journey, from a floor to a future. This wasn't just about winning. It was about learning who I am when I choose myself. Want to know what I took from this? The lessons that reshaped me are next, and they might just reshape you too. Every journey leaves you with lessons, some harder one than others. My journey, from sleeping on my parents' cold living room floor to standing tall in my own home next door, taught me more about myself than I ever expected. I'm Emily, and this isn't just the story of a house or a pool. It's the story of reclaiming my worth, of learning to choose myself when others wouldn't. The pain was real, the betrayal cut deep, but what I gained was worth it, a life built on my terms, a clarity that no one can take away. As I look back, I see 5 lessons that reshaped me, lessons that might just resonate with you. So, let's unpack them together, because sometimes the hardest moments hold the greatest truths. First, self-respect is the foundation of everything. My parents, Linda and Robert, made me feel like my worth depended on a job I couldn't find in a recession. They tied my value to their approval, and for a while, I believed them. Sleeping on that floor, I felt small, like I'd failed at life. But I learned that your worth isn't defined by others, not your family, not your circumstances. It comes from within, from knowing you deserve dignity, no matter what. I stopped waiting for their validation and started building a life that reflected my value. Ask yourself, are you letting someone else define your worth? If so, it's time to take that power back. You are enough, just as you are. Second, boundaries aren't selfish, they're necessary. When my parents gave my room to Chloe and told me the floor was fine, they crossed a line. They assumed family meant I'd accept anything, no matter how disrespectful. I could have argued, could have pleaded, but instead, I set a boundary. Buying the house next door, building that pool, refusing to let them waltz into my space, those were my lines in the sand. Boundaries aren't about pushing people away, they're about protecting your peace. My pool wasn't just a statement to them, it was a promise to myself that I'd never again let anyone treat me as less than I deserve. Where in your life do you need to draw a line? Maybe it's saying no to a toxic dynamic or carving out space for your own dreams. Whatever it is, don't be afraid to stand firm. Third, actions speak louder than words. My parents offered apologies, Dad's was genuine but incomplete, Mom's was defensive, but words alone couldn't undo the hurt. I didn't need to yell or fight to make my point. I let my actions do the talking. I got a job at Apex Designs, bought a house, built a pool, and created a life that screamed my worth louder than any argument could. When I stood on my porch and told them they hadn't earned entry to my home, that was stronger than any speech. People will always have excuses, justifications, but what you do carries weight. If someone's hurt you, don't waste energy on endless debates. Show them who you are through what you build, what you achieve. What action can you take today to prove your strength, not just to others, but to yourself? Fourth, pain can be a catalyst, not a cage. Those nights on the floor were brutal, physically, emotionally. The ache in my back was nothing compared to the ache in my heart, feeling erased by the people who should have lifted me up. I could have let that pain define me, let it turn into bitterness or despair. Instead, I channeled it. Every sting of their dismissal fueled my plan. The house, the pool, my career at Apex, they weren't born from ease, they were born from struggle. Pain doesn't have to break you, it can push you to create something extraordinary. Think about your own hardships. What if, instead of holding you back, they became the spark for your next big move? My pool started as a way to prove a point, but it became my joy, a symbol of what I could do when I refused to stay down. Fifth, create joy for yourself, because no one else will do it for you. That pool, with its waterfall and energy-efficient design, wasn't just about showing up my parents. It was a gift to myself. On warm evenings, I'd float on my back, watching the sky shift from orange to purple, feeling a peace I'd fought for. My house, my career, my garden, every choice was about building a life that made me happy, not proving something to others. I learned to stop waiting for someone else to hand me happiness. I made it. The pool stopped being about them and became my sanctuary, a place where I could breathe. What's one thing you can do today to bring yourself joy? It doesn't have to be big, a walk, a hobby, a moment of quiet. But make it yours, because you deserve it. These lessons didn't come cheap. They were forged in sleepless nights, in the sting of being stepped over, in the quiet resolve to rise anyway. I saw them in action beyond my own life, too. At Apex, a colleague named Sarah shared her story with me. She'd been drowning under her family's demands, endless favors, guilt trips for not doing enough. Inspired by my journey, she started saying no, setting boundaries that gave her space to chase her own goals. One day, she turned down a request to drop everything for her sister's last-minute plans. I felt free, she told me, her eyes bright. Like I was choosing myself for the first time. Seeing her transform reminded me, these lessons aren't just mine. They're universal. They're for anyone who's ever felt unseen, unvalued, or stuck. My journey changed me, but it's not the end. It's a beginning. I'm still learning, still growing, still figuring out what it means to live authentically. My parents are next door, grappling with their missteps, and Chloe's on her own path, inspired to study architecture. Our relationships are evolving, but they'll never go back to what they were. And that's okay. I don't need their approval to know who I am. I built a home, a career, a life that reflects my worth, and no one can take that away. The pool's lights still glow at night, a quiet reminder of the woman I became, not because of their dismissal, but in spite of it. So, what's your story? Have you ever had to set a boundary, choose yourself, or turn pain into power? Share it in the comments. I'd love to hear how you've risen above. If this resonated, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of triumph and transformation. Share this with someone who needs a reminder that they're worth more than they've been told. My journey started on a floor, but it led me to a life I love. Yours can too. The question is, what's the first step you'll take to claim your worth? Because trust me, once you start, there's no going back.